Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball.
Tuesday, May 19th at 10:30 a.m., it's morning baseball. Wednesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m., have a pawsome time at Bark in the Park. Thursday, May 21st at 6:30, it's Pride Night with $5 Bud or Bud Light draft beer. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Well, what a day. I'm so pleased that Doug Brunt, one of the coolest, greatest gentlemen I've ever met in my life. True story, Doug. Doug Brunt is a successful author, also has a career in finance behind him, venture capital, you name it. Doug Brunt just wrote The Lost Empire of Emmanuel Noble, Romanovs, Revolutionaries, and the Forgotten Titan Who Fueled the World. This is his latest book. I don't know how many he's had now. 10? He'll tell us the right number. Doug Brunt, welcome back. How are you?
Great. It's awesome to be back with you.
Doug, I mean that about you being a gentleman. Did I tell you that story? What happened? Why I think that of you? And you are. But did I ever...
I'm trying to recall, but I would love to hear it again, even if I have.
I don't think I had to. I walked into a New York party, and it was like a who's who. This is a long time ago. This is about 13, 14 years ago. And, you know, I'm like, uh-oh, who am I? I'm a local guy here. I didn't feel like I knew anybody. And I saw beautiful people all over the place. And just everybody seemed to be in the know, and everybody seemed to have somebody to talk to. And I looked up, and I see a guy, tall guy, very good looking, talking to somebody, and people are, around him. I'm like, look at that guy. He must be a prince or something like that. And he's got it made. And then you looked at me and said, "Oh, hey, Greg." And you were the night. It was like, oh my God, I know him. That's Doug. And it was just amazing because, also a lesson for me. You think the whole world's against you, and it's not. You know what I mean?
I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I mean, I could turn that story right around on you because I remember seeing you cover some news from, conflict zones. You're out in war zones and you're like, you got blood coming down the forehead and you're doing it. I'm like, that guy is a stud. Holy cow.
Well, Doug, thank you. Thank you for that. And congratulations on the book. Hey, is the life of a writer ever lonely?
Yes, but I actually love my alone time. I really enjoy getting into the office and spending, usually I'm writing from maybe 8:30 a.m. to about lunchtime, and I look forward to that time. Not everybody enjoys their solitary time, but I really do. It's special time for me, so it works out.
What book is this? What number?
I've written 3 novels, and this is my second nonfiction book. So the last book was called The Mysterious Case of Rudolf Diesel, about the inventor of the diesel engine who disappeared right before World War I, and it's narrative history. It's nonfiction, but told in a novelistic way, sort of like an Eric Larson style of book. This is my second nonfiction book. This is The Lost Empire of Emmanuel Nobel. And I think your audience will connect with this book because the quest to capture the sources of energy is the story of our times. You open up any newspaper, it's Venezuela, Iran, whatever. The story of Emmanuel Nobel and his oil empire in the early days of the Russian Empire, he essentially pioneered the Russian oil industry in the late 1800s. That's the original oil war. Emmanuel Nobel is the nephew of Alfred Nobel. That's the one we know because he got out of Russia and he was really living and working in Western Europe. He invented dynamite and established the Nobel Prizes. But his nephew Emmanuel was far more successful, far bigger an industrialist, pioneered a Russian oil company that became larger than Standard Oil by World War I. And then toward the end of the war, the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks take over. What Stalin did to Emmanuel Nobel is the inspiration for George Orwell's 1984. There's a passage in that novel that talks about they changed the street names, they ripped down the statues, they rewrote the history. That's what Orwell's talking about there is what Stalin did to Emmanuel Nobel. He completely absconded with his oil empire. He renamed it from Nobel Brothers Petroleum Company. This was along the Caspian Sea, what was then the Russian Empire, to call it the Soviet Petroleum Company. And Nobel also in the north by St. Petersburg had a munitions and engine factory where he made diesel engines, and they renamed that Ruski Diesel. They basically, had this massive collision in the wake of the Russian Civil War between Emmanuel Nobel and Joseph Stalin.
Wow. You learn a lot about a lot of stuff. It sounds like you're all. How old was he when he died?
Let's see. He was born in 1859 and he died in 1932. So 74.
Was he happy?
73. I would say not really toward the end, because I don't want to give away too much of the book, but as part of this collision, there's this crazy escape that he has. He's basically in a refugee town. It's actually sort of a spa resort where some of the Romanovs are also kind of sitting on the sidelines, hoping these Bolsheviks don't last. And nobody thought they would. Trotsky, Lenin, Stalin, they'd never run anything in their lives, let alone this massive, wacky empire. So people thought a couple of months, these guys are going to fall on their face. And so Emmanuel Nobel's riding this out in this resort town, along with a number of other aristocracy, from St. Petersburg, and hoping that they can rejoin Russia if the White Army can prevail in the Russian Civil War over Stalin and the Red Army. Of course, that doesn't happen. And so he makes this very harrowing escape and returns to the country of origin of the Nobels. I mean, Alfred Nobel and the rest of the Nobels had been of Swedish origin. So he returns with plenty of dough in his pocket. He managed to salvage some things. It was an international business, so he lost the bulk of his empire in Russia, but he was not penniless. But he was certainly, I would say, fairly... he got the losing end of the stick all here.
They stole his stuff. Communists steal your stuff.
Exactly right. Overnight, they nationalized more than 9,000 businesses. That included not only the oil concern along the Caspian Sea in southern Russia, but all of his manufacturing and engine plant up in northern Russia.
So does this, bring it to today? I mean, we have socialists in America. They're getting elected to big jobs, and they're saying stuff like that. We're going to seize. That's the ultimate goal. Mamdani said that. Mm-hmm. Any overtones, what we are seeing in America, what Mr. Nobel lived through, prior to the 1917 and all that stuff?
Yes, 100%. As you read this book, it echoes throughout. The epigraph of the book is from a playwright who wrote, "There is no present or future, only the past happening over and over and over again." And you see, as you read through what was happening in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, it echoes through to today. And so when Nobel is sort of hiding out in this resort town behind the White Army, he gets a letter from Moscow, from Lenin and Stalin, summoning Citizen Nobel, please come to Baku and to the oil concerns where you can help us, figure out how we're going to take this over and continue to run it. Because Stalin, who grew up in southern Russia, in the country of Georgia, actually worked in the oil fields of Nobel and Rothschild. The Rothschilds were the other major Russian oil concern at the time. And he was encouraging Lenin that we need to nationalize this. We need to take over the oil. And Lenin was hesitating. He's like, look, if we don't get these guys who run it currently to help us, we need their cooperation, because there's no one in the communist government who actually knows how to run any of this stuff. We can take it over, and then the production's going to trickle to nothing, and then we're lost. We've got no oil, so we need them to continue to run it. So they summon Nobel and try to get him to cooperate with this nationalization scheme in which they're basically going to take everything from him. And the Nobel executives get together. They have this meeting where there's this great letter that said they're asking us to drive the hearse at our own third-class funeral. So.
Wild. I love that. Let me ask you something. Let's face it, everybody's on their phone. There is something delicious and special. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I love when I do it. When you read a book, it's like, oh my gosh, what have I been missing?
Yeah, it like activates parts of the brain that have been left a little dormant.
And when you're not writing, you're reading, aren't you?
I read a ton. Yeah, I read a lot for research, and then a lot of outside books. I love a good Eric Larson read, of which this is basically something like that. And and I'll dip between fiction and nonfiction.
Well, one of the small, other than your erudition and everything, but there are pictures in this book, which is good for me and I think good for the reader. You'd be surprised. There is a trend going on right now, Doug, where major nonfiction books that beg for pictures are coming out without pictures. And my impression is that the author is just not asking for them, because you can get pictures in the book. It's not that much more expensive.
Yeah.
Is a kind of a, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking about what's his name's book, Gavin Newsom, which I'm kind of obsessed with because it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. All right. Now, The book is, once again, The Lost Empire of Emmanuel Nobel. Is it on audio or Audible?
I read the audio in the book, yeah. For the first time ever, I read I did my own audiobook.
Unabridged? Abridged?
It better be I don't know. It's it's the full book. I'm sure they edited me to make me sound a little better, but yeah.
I bet it's unabridged. I feel like they're holding stuff back, so you can get it on Audible as well.
Actually, Apple Books. So Apple Books started this new thing. They have their picks of the month, of which this is one. But last month they pick only one nonfiction book, and they call it the Conversation Starter. So last month for April, it was called London Falling, which is a terrific book. If you've heard about that, it's getting a little bit of buzz. But the second ever is The Lost Empire of Emmanuel Nobel. It is the Apple Books pick of the month as the Conversation Starter. Because there are so many ties to present day. I mean, if you're interested in what's in the news now, this story of Emmanuel Nobel from turn of the century, the last century, is right on the target.
A couple more things about him. Was he a prodigy? Was he really smart as a kid?
He was super smart, but he was more of a financier. His father was more of an engineering genius. There's so much in this book I wish we had more time to go into, but his father invented the world's first ever oil tanker. Most people thought it couldn't be done, to develop these steel cisterns in the hull of the ship and have it secure enough to travel the oceans. His father invented that, which is really one of the things that rocked Standard Oil back on its heels, because suddenly the Nobels, in this incredibly plentiful, oil-rich land in Baku along the Caspian, literally oil is bubbling to the surface in puddles. They wouldn't even drill; they were just skimming it off the surface as you walk around. It's insane. There was so much oil there, and they were the first to really start sending it around the world in oil tankers. So he was super smart as a financier and sort of a diplomat and a businessman, and his father was an engineer.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm kind of curious, actually, because anti-Semitism is alive and well. Were they Jewish?
They were not Jewish, but they were very Jewish-friendly. And the Rothschilds, so in Russia, in Europe in general, anti-Semitism was rampant. Yeah. In Russia, it was particularly bad. And that was harder for the Rothschilds, who were the other major oil concern in Russia, because it was just so uphill for them being Jewish. The Nobels were not Jewish, but they were not anti-Semitic either. In fact, they worked with a number of Jewish families, both as investors and business partners.
Have you already been on Mrs. Doug Brunt, also known as Megyn Kelly's podcast yet? Megyn Kelly is your spouse. Have you done her show?
Yesterday was the day. We had a little chat about Nobel. We had a little champagne, which I'm wondering where the champagne is around here.
Yeah, sorry. If I start drinking champagne, the party will last until Tuesday.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's go.
Well, give Megan our best. I know she's very proud of you. We watched her on X, and we're very proud of her. I mean, my gosh, she has revolutionized media, and it's got to be pretty sweet.
She's doing great, and she says hello.
Thank you very, very much. And okay, a couple of quick things. If you want to look like Doug, and you do, by the way, tall, slim, but not skinny, and very, very smart. I am kind of curious, daily routines. Do you mind if I ask you? What time do you wake up?
Around 6. And
alarm or no alarm?
No, almost. I set one, but it never goes off. I have this weird thing. I was just saying, we had this dinner the other night where someone's like, we went around the table, what's your superpower? My superpower is I wake up 3 minutes before my alarm almost every day, no matter where I set the alarm. If I have to get up at 4 for a flight, I'll be up at 3:57. So I'm up early, coffee, in bed. Meg and I have coffee together in bed. We listen to AM Update, the Megyn Kelly AM Update that pops out every morning at 6 a.m., which is about 20 minutes. We listen to that, get the kids off to school, come back and write. In terms of staying in shape, the only thing I really do is play tennis once or twice a week. That's like my main thing. And other than that, I'll try to get up every couple hours from writing and do like a quick walk around the neighborhood or something like that. But I mostly work from home.
You remind me, you wrote a book about tennis, Trophy Son, I think the name of it was.
Yes, good memory.
It's actually a great novel. I've given it as a gift to a couple of tennis guys because it's just a cool book. And it's about a tennis star and his adventures, and it's terrific. Well, you really are a great writer. And Douglas Brunt, before we say goodbye, you know who I miss? Nelson DeMille. And I know Nelson DeMille, yes. Long Island, and everybody knows, best-selling author, but was a friend and a mentor of yours. I'm right in saying that, right? He was a mentor.
He was. It's funny you say that because I was hoping it would come up because I just got back from the Framer this letter that Nelson gave. I mean, he was a great mutual friend. I know you guys were very tight as well. He wrote a letter to me early on when I had just met him back in maybe 2012, 11 or 12. And it was a letter of advice on how to deal with agents and publishers and just the industry and the career as a writer in general. And so his writing, as you know, was horrific. So it's a typed letter, hand signed by him, that came in the mail. They're so old school. Nobody sent now, like, formal is text message. Most kids are snapping, whatever the hell that is. So a text is formal, and email is absurdly formal. That's like if you're applying for a job, let alone a handwritten note or a hand signed note, in this case, typed and hand signed. So anyway, I had it framed, and it's in my office.
That's amazing. Beautiful. He wrote books that way, too. That's how he wrote his books.
Yeah, with a number 1 pencil. Whatever the softer lead pencil is what he used.
Oh, well, Nelson, I know you're proud, very proud of Doug, and hopefully me a little bit, too, where we miss you. But Douglas Brunt, The Lost Empire of Emmanuel Nobel, Romanovs, Revolutionaries, and the Forgotten Titan Who Fueled the World. Available wherever books are sold. You got any book events coming up? You're going to be doing the signing thing that kind of going by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, I'm doing less and less of that. I'll schedule a couple of events around libraries and things like that coming up. Going to do something in New Canaan, Connecticut later this week. But
you never know. You say then all kinds of freaks and weirdos show up.
Yeah.
I hope you're going to be going to talk to Netflix and those people, because this has a mini series or movie written all over it, in my opinion. Doug Brunt. Thank you very much.
Great to be with you, Greg. Thanks.
All right.